another way to ask the question is that two ways. Is that the way is that is it even worth? I guess maybe that's a wrong framing. But so the other way to see it would be your kid, for instance. Your son is going through middle school and high school and college, and he's gonna go through all of this, and he's gonna have to go to write essays and things and write math problems and like at that point when we have the tools that you could do it for us and we could be focusing on what we're actually good at. Which is another point that I want to get at is Licklider wrote this thing, Human Computer Interface. Have you read that thing?
I have not read that one.
Have you heard of the name?
What is the person's first name?
JCR Licklider.
I don't think I've read that.
He was at MIT. He's a very interesting person. But anyway, so what he was saying is that he wrote these papers that at some point, all the thinking, the computing will be done by a machine, and us, the humans, will be focusing on the judgment. So is it even worth for your son to, go to middle school and be writing essays and doing these things when he can be perhaps focusing on what the future human would do?
Yeah, I totally think it's important. One, I mean, he needs to develop social skills. I think it's important to build a social network and to learn about collaborative learning and to throw ideas off other people and to grow that way. I think that's super important. I also think it's much easier to critique than create. And so, yeah, you can have things creating for you, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't be creating yourself as well. I think, I critique so much, but it's so much harder to create. But when I do create, in many ways, that's my research. Sometimes as I write, I get these new ideas that I don't get just from critiquing existing work. So for me, writing is a research process. It's a way of generating new ideas. And while it's hard for me, I'm not going to lie, I don't want to give that up because it's one of my tools in my toolbox for doing what I do and for helping me to come up with new ideas. And so, yeah, I also think that while we have, you can ask GPT-3 to tell you the rules of soccer in a haiku and write poetry for you. But it's still interesting to see what humans write with respect to poetry. And it's also important to remember that, at least for now, a lot of machine learning algorithms, take what's out there and synthesize something from it. Even if you ask it something more recent, GPT-3 will tell you, if it's after 2021, I'm sorry, I can't do anything.
It's not in my model.
Yeah. And so, we still don't know yet the limitations. There's still many debates about what is intelligence, about what it can do. Is it reasoning? Is it not? But there are things that happen in our brain when we write that help us grow. And interestingly enough, there are also studies that show that because we use GPS a lot, there's certain parts of our brain that are shrinking. And so I'm wondering how it is going to change us in some ways. Just to bring out some other analogies, I do think the social thing is important, but I love my washing machine, especially because it's so cold in Urbana in the winter. So maybe once upon a time, people would go to some lake and wash clothes together and talk and gossip, and that was great. So I wouldn't mind some extra time, some water cooler time when talking to people. But I do like my washing machine. And so this debate about whether or not this frees up time for you to do other things is ongoing. It's happened with the car, with the washing machine, with the typewriter, with the word processor. And people keep finding creative new things to do. And I do think it's going to make some things simpler. But I think for me, I would still want to be able to write, even if, GPT-3 could do awesome things. I wouldn't mind if it made my CV for me, so I wouldn't have to update it all the time with certain, things that are more rote. But for certain creative tasks, I think people would miss writing if they couldn't do it, or if they were told not to do it.
That's the other thing, right? Your dependence on tools also have implications. It goes both ways. And that's pretty interesting to think about. And I think what you're trying to say is there's still a human aspect to what we do and what we like doing. And sure, you can there are ways to automate that, but some things need to be done the way that we want it to. And I think the way these tools can help us is to get rid of those tasks that might be cumbersome or don't involve much creative thinking, so that we can focus on those creative thinking parts. I think that's what he was trying to also get at.
That's kind of what we've done, like with assembly line. And I can also imagine using tools like, I mean, I go to Instagram sometimes, I go to Pinterest to get like ideas if I'm designing something. I can imagine sort of like a back and forth, getting ideas from some automated tool like that, you know, to help in some of my processes and like in creating these new, you know, human, you know, AI dialogues that could be really interesting. And I'm really interested in tools that would help you steer things in one way or another. But yeah, I do see possibilities there.